while a long-awaited revelation is quickly overshadowed by a much more unnecessary one. Hey guys, coming over Supergirl, Season 2, Episode 10, We Can Be Heroes, and I was definitely really looking forward to this episode. I'm not gonna lie, I definitely gave last week's episode way too high of a grade. I don't know why I gave last week's episode an A-. It did not deserve that grade at all. Last week's episode would have been a solid B+, or even a B. A- is not at all what I would give that episode, but nevertheless, I was definitely really looking forward to this episode. You guys know I've really been enjoying this season, and this episode I actually thought was a bit better than last week's, but it definitely did have one fatal flaw, and that while it did give us something that I was very much looking forward to and was very happy to see kind of come to a close, at the same time, we get another, twist that, not a twist, but a plot revelation that has kind of been building within the show that I really I really wish they would have just left alone. I really wish they would have, but let's just get into it because I really do want to talk about it. Most of this episode, while we do have Livewire back in this episode, a lot of it focused more on the relation between Kara and Mon-El. Who are these two? Is Mon-El really trustworthy? And I thought that storyline in general was quite compelling because we start out, we see Mon-El and Supergirl training at the DEO. Although Mon-El loses one of the cardboard cutouts he was supposed to protect, Supergirl admits that Mon-El's getting a lot better. She tells him that she thinks it's time probably to get his own suits, and I like this. I like seeing these two working together. They bounce off each other very well. They have a lot of really great one-liners, and Maggie and some other people find a bunch of thugs beat up and tossed into a pile of trash, each with drugs on their person. She comments the Guardian must have been working the night shift, and when James gets back to the van, Wynn notices that James has a bullet wound in his suit because he got kind of shot, and Wynn mentions to James that he has to fix his suit in addition to making Mon-El a suit, and asks James to tell Kara about what they've been doing at night, because it's just going to keep happening, and eventually Kara's going to find out in some way, and he might as well come clean to her before she finds out. And I wish that James really would have listened to Wynn, because then things wouldn't have taken the turn that they do in this episode. Honestly, I think it would have been smarter for him to do that. But I'm kind of glad he didn't, because I like the direction that this episode really does take once we get to that. But McGawn is still stuck in her containment suit. She starts hearing chants in her head. She starts chanting, "Death, blood, beautiful war," over and over, and John runs into the room. She screams, breaks the glass in the containment center, and I always said John didn't have a ton to do in last week's episode. Well, that is definitely made up for here. He had a lot to do here. He passes out, and John gets her to sickbay, where Alex says that she's physically fine, but there's something going on with her psychologically, and we don't really know what that's about, but I do like the way they're keeping McGawn on the show, and that she's not a villain, she's still on the show. She's not exactly the most stable and exactly the most trustworthy, but, John still cares about her. She is still a Martian. Even though she's the one thing that John fears the most, he himself is turning into one. So I do like the direction they're going with the storyline. I think it's really well done, the way they're handling this, and I really do like John and McGawn overall, and I like that McGawn is, staying on the show for right now. So a psychologist is talking to Livewire in prison, asking if she wants to try to return to her life from before, and instead, Livewire vows that she'll kill Supergirl when she gets out of prison, and she rants about how powerful she is. A guard and another prisoner unlock her cell. They shock the psychologist as Livewire smiles, and I really did like seeing Livewire back. The actress that plays her is really great, and this is now the third time we've seen her, which they mentioned quite a lot in this episode, and I think the last episode was World's Finest. If I don't remember, she was back in World's Finest. I think she was back there, but Maggie and Alex examine Livewire's cell as Kara barges onto the scene. Carl's all worked up about Livewire. She doesn't know what to do, as she's somewhat of a nemesis to Supergirl. She is definitely somewhat of a problem, and Kara does make a good point that they probably shouldn't have kept her, they probably should not put her in a psych ward. They should have kept her in the DO headquarters where, they could have kept an eye on her if she would do anything reckless, and now Kara feels like she really screwed up in that regard, and I definitely do agree with that. I think they could have easily, maybe had a few more security precautions when it came to checking on Livewire, but that's kind of too late now. They can't really go back, and back at the DO, Wynn gets Mon-El pumped to fight Livewire, and we know that Wynn had his own run-in with Livewire last season, so he knows what it's like to fight someone like Livewire, but Supergirl warns them both that Livewire is a threat, and Alex tells John that McGawn is dying and asks her to perform a mind meld, and John refuses, though, and says to let him die. He's literally willing to sacrifices his life to save Magan. And yeah, I like this direction that we're going. The Magan's actually dying, we find out. I mean, it's sad, but it makes sense for the character. You know, Magan's not going to be there the whole time. We can't have her in every episode, so it kind of makes sense to have her go through this. And this is really something that John doesn't want to do. You know, he wants to save her. He's willing to sacrifice his own life, and it's really sad to see, but their scenes are really well handled. Livewire then shows up at the National State Police Department, and Kara vents to James about Livewire, but James reminds him that she doesn't have to fight Livewire alone. But Kara brings up Mon-El, and James questions Mon-El's commitment to being a hero. Is he really that great at being a hero? Is he really as good as Kara thinks he is? And yeah, he brings up some good points here, that Mon-El, she's just kind of called on him, but no, that's not really the case. I mean, Kara also says, when are they going to be able to find someone who randomly comes from an alien planet? When's that going to happen? There's not really going to be many other chances, so she's going to take her chances with Mon-El, and I like that she's done that. And their talk gets interrupted by a news report about Livewire attacking the police department, and they arrive. She discovers that Livewire's accomplices now both have powers, and Supergirl then orders Mon-El to help the cops to safety, tries to fight the pair alone, but she quickly gets overwhelmed, and Mon-El then abandons the cops to help Supergirl. Guardian arrives to protect the cops instead, and Guardian then gets zapped while protecting the police. The pair escape into the lights before Supergirl can shoot them both with water, and then Supergirl finds Guardian on the ground. She pulls up his helmets, and finally, the moment we've all been waiting for happens when she realizes that Guardian is none other than James. And this is a revelation that I think has really been in the making. We've been looking forward to when Kara was going to find out, and it was exactly as I said. Kara would find out in a way where James didn't tell her. She'd find out in the worst way possible, and I like that James didn't tell her, that she found out all on her own, and no one told her. So obviously, Kara's quite upset about this. Alex is patching James up at the DEO. She discovers that all her friends knew that James was Guardian beforehand, and, she really feels dumbfounded. She feels like this was right in front of her the whole time. How could she not tell that James was, the Guardian, especially with that scene with James, who we could tell wanted to join her in the fight. And we get, again, a lot of people haven't liked James' arc. I understand why James wants to fight. He wants to help Kara. He knows that he can't help her, in the Daily Planet. He doesn't have powers, but he wants to do what he can to try to help her. And the way that he did that was becoming the Guardian. And that's how he would help her out. But, he can't really do that. He's going to get hurt. And she asks everyone to leave the room so she can speak to James himself. And she says the problem is that James is a human, and that one human error is gonna get him killed, and she wants him to not be the Guardian anymore. But James brings up all of Mon-El's errors in the field, and Mon-El hasn't been perfect, and yeah, James is right. Mon-El has not been perfect at everything, but the thing that Mon-El is very good at, that James seems to be, very stubborn with, is that Mon-El has powers, and Mon-El is an alien. If he gets hurt, he can, get exposed to kryptonite or something like that, but if he gets hurt, there's a lot better of a chance that he will survive. James gets hurt, the wound, is sustained, he has to keep going through all these problems, he's gonna get weaker, and yeah, I think definitely the concerns that Kara has are very, important, and definitely are earned. You can understand why Kara feels the way she does, and she gives James an ultimatum that she'll stop or she'll stop him, and I like that she says that, look, I'm gonna stop you, in any way she can. If it has to be physical harm, then she will do that. She will do whatever she can to try to put an end to it, because she's not okay with it, and James says that he's welcome, that, she's welcome to try, and you get the sense that James obviously isn't gonna stop. He wants to protect Kara, he's not gonna stop doing that, and I really did like the way that this was all done. The problem is, it's not the main thing we focus on this episode, because while it seemed like it was going to be, it's actually not. We'll get into that in a second, but Alex tries to convince John to help Magan, points out that Magan saved John's life, but John doesn't want to mind meld with Magan because he doesn't want to think of the White Martian as anything other than monsters that he can hate. He doesn't want to believe that the White Martians are good. He has been, led up to believe that the White Martians are, basically Nazis, and basically, what his people went through was essentially the Holocaust for aliens, and you have to really get into that mindset. I mean, that's basically asking someone like Anne Frank to play a Nazi and look at them as good people. It's just not easy to do. When you look at someone as evil, you just see them as evil, but you don't really try to see through their evil. And that's something that, John is very afraid to do, and it's a very understandable fear, and I like the way the show is really tackling John's fear with the White Martians, because Magon's a white Martian. He doesn't really want to think of her as any more than that, and while he does want to help her, he still sees her as someone that he can hate, and I really do like the direction that this is going, with John kind of being forced to come to terms with the people that he hates and really start to see them as something more, which is something he doesn't really want to do, but his feelings that he's starting to develop that aren't hate, they're much more gravitated towards something positive, and he really doesn't know how to feel about something like that. It's a very realistic story, and I think the show is doing very well, and really does, I think, show how great the character work has really been all season. So Kara then catches up to Mon-El, says that he can't be trusted in the field, and here's where we get to the part of the episode that kind of lost me. As you guys know, I love Kara and Mon-El. I really do love these two working together. I think Melissa Benoist and the actor who plays them, they have very good chemistry. I've liked them from the second we've seen them. But the one aspect I have not been okay with is them going beyond a friendship. Because as I've said, these two are friends or brother and sister. I do not see them as anything more than that. It'd be weird if they did that. They just have this really fun brother-sisterly dynamic. You know, them in the, you know, them being trapped last week and Mon-El, you know, trying to treat her like an older sister, that was a lot of fun to watch. But what we get here, I'm not entirely happy with. Kara asks Mon-El why he wants to work with her, and asks if it's because he likes her. And I'm like, oh god, we're back to this again. Because I really thought, look, I knew we were going to get back to this eventually. I really did. But I really thought that the show was going to take some time to venture away from this because nobody cares. I mean, is there anyone that wants Kara and Mon-El together? I don't think so. I don't want them together. I don't think you guys want them together. I want them to be friends. We don't need Kara to be with someone. Something the show has proven extremely well this season is that Kara does not need a man to get by. Yes, she's training Mon-El. Yes, she's worked with him. But this was all Mon-El's decision. This wasn't Kara saying, I need you. Kara's never told Mon-El that she needs him. He wants to work with her. He wants to be a superhero, and she wants to be the one to train him. It's not because she, you know, that she wants a boyfriend. It has nothing to do with that. And Mon-El obviously can't give her a straight answer, but Supergirl says she needs to find Livewire because she's the only one who acknowledges how dangerous the supervillain really is. So, because, you know, no one else really seems to, you know, make a big deal out of it. They just think that she's, you know, something they can deal with because they've dealt with her 2 times before. But there's only one problem, that Livewire might need to be saved instead of stopped. We see screaming and tied up to a gurney with wires hanging from her as a scientist looks on. And this was very interesting to see, the fact that Livewire was actually being held up for dear life and that she was actually being tortured was something very surprising to see. So, back to the DEO, Wynn shows Supergirl the prison footage that proves Livewire was taken, and Wynn claims that he can't track Livewire's energy, but it turns out that he was lying so that James has a chance to show Supergirl what he can do as Guardian, and that's really what he's trying to do here. Now, he wants Guardian to get in the fight. He wants Kara to see that, yes, James could possibly get himself hurt, but he's very good at what he does, and him as Guardian is a good thing, and Kara's not really seeing the good in that kind of thing. And again, it's very much what's going on with John, where she just wants to see Guardian as a bad, well, not as a bad person, but as someone that she can combat against, someone who is an enemy. She doesn't want to look at him as anything more, and she doesn't really want to look at the positives, and that's something that, you know, Wynn is trying to show her, and I like the way that Wynn is staying on James' side, because he easily could have gone to the left, where he sides with Kara because, you know, she's his best friend, and you know, basically, you know, they've always worked well together, and that, oh, he feels bad for what James did. But no, he's staying loyal to James because he feels more comfortable that way. He feels like he actually has a purpose that way, and I like the Wynn is staying close to James. I like the relationship they're developing. I've loved their friendship, and I like the way the Wynn was really trying to get Kara to really listen to James and actually really try to bond with him here. I really did like that. So, John brings Supergirl into the med bay and says that he's going to meld with Magon, and he asks Supergirl and Alex to stay for moral support. John enters their mind and finds Magon watching the white Martians gathering up green Martians. Magon explains that she set up a guard tower on fire because the other white Martians wanted him to kill a child, and Magon then apologized for hiding her identity, says that all she wanted was to be his friend. That's it. She didn't want anything else. She just wanted to be his friend, and she didn't want to be, you know, this enemy. And John says they are friends. He pulls her out of her memories, and he's basically being forced to befriend someone that he despises. You know, he doesn't despise Magon, but he despises her race, he despises her species, and he's starting to look at her as much more than that. Again, it's very hard for him to do something like that. He has to look at her as something much bigger than a villain, and again, it's a very interesting storyline. I like the direction that's going, but the scientist holding Livewire explains that he's making super soldiers, staged the attack to advertise his goods to various countries, basically just to see if it could actually work, and Guardian shows up to rescue Livewire, and Mon-El arrives just moments later, and after Guardian takes out the two knockoffs, the lead scientist says that he experimented on himself first, and Wynn then calls Supergirl, says that both James and Mon-El got captured by the scientists, and the scientist plans to turn the pair into more electric super soldiers, but Supergirl shows up and frees them, and she then orders the pair to take care of the scientist's goons while she rescues Livewire, and she then frees Livewire. She convinces Livewire not to attack her and go after the scientist instead, and when Livewire tries to kill the scientist, she offers to give Livewire a head start before she chases after her, and Livewire agrees and leaves, but warns her not to bring any backup next time. So again, they're doing whatever they can to get into Livewire's head, and I like the direction that she actually is she's actually working with Livewire. After 3 times, Livewire is actually not the villain here, which was quite surprising. They made you think that Livewire was going to get revenge on Supergirl, but there's not really much more for her to do. I think she's, already had her fight with her. She's already kind of picked her battles, and I like the way that Supergirl actually had to free her. And again, look at Livewire. It's something that wasn't a maniacal villain. That's kind of the theme of this episode, is look at things that are bad and see the good in them, which is something that Kara wasn't really willing to do, but she actually did here. So John then berates Wynn for lying to him, which is, again, is understandable. He admits that he and James make a good team, and again, I like the way that whole thing went down with Livewire. So John berates Wynn for lying to him, but he admits that he and James made a good team, and again, that's understandable why John would be really upset, because this was something that Wynn did again behind his back, and he tells Wynn that if this happens again, he will in fact be fired. So Supergirl explains to Alex that Livewire still has some good in her, which is why she let her go, and she then tells James and Wynn that she won't stop them from being Guardian, but she just can't support it. Even though they want to do it, she just is not going to support it. She understands why. She completely understands why they want to do that. They want to help people, but she just can't separate. She can't separate them as her friends. She sees them in trouble. She knows that what they're going through, and she really does not want to see them as anything more than her two friends. She just doesn't want them to get hurt. So James and Wynn walk away, and that's the probably temporary end of their friendship, which is sad to see. I really did like these two as friends, but it makes sense why we're going this direction. They can't do this forever. This is something that is very dangerous and is eventually going to get them hurt, which I do think James is going to continue as Guardian. Just right now, he kind of needs to put a stop to it, because Wynn's job is on the line if he continues to do it. But John then tells McGahan that she was physically attacked by the White Martians. They know where she is, and they're coming for her, we find out. So if we're going into like a White Martian battle, that's going to be very compelling to see where this goes, actually. I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen with that, because I think that's going to be very interesting. Then we get to the ending, and this ending I was not really that big of a fan with, I have to say, because we see Mon-El. He comes to Supergirl's apartment and says he remembers kissing her, and Mon-El admits that he saved her at the police station because he cares about her, but that he understands she doesn't feel the same way. And I like that he let her down and told her, look, I understand that you don't care, you don't care about me in that way, but all Mon-El asks is that he gets to keep working with her, which is, I think, what we want. I want to see these two as just working buddies. I don't want to see them as anything else. I just want to see them as friends and, brother and sister, not a relationship. He awkwardly high-fives her and leaves, and she seems pretty taken aback, almost as if she's starting to develop possible feelings for him, but that is the way the episode ends. Very interesting stuff overall. Let's get into this episode more. I think we're going to go from here. So overall, guys, I really did enjoy this episode, but there's a lot of possibilities that this episode hints at. Some are good and some are bad, definitely. Let's first talk about what went down with Supergirl and Livewire, because this was a very eye-opening episode for Kara. She saw 2 things that she saw as bad and tried to see the good in them. One really did work, and one failed. One being Livewire. She saw Livewire as someone who wasn't completely evil. She actually does have good in her. She isn't always going to have the upper hand, and while she may be maniacal, she's not unstoppable. She can, in fact, get captured. She can, in fact, be taken away, and she can, lose as much of her power as Kara does. And I think Kara seeing that and seeing the vulnerable position that Livewire was in got her to look at Livewire in a whole new way. And I really did love seeing that. It was just a really interesting thing for Supergirl to see someone she usually sees as a villain and who we have been led to believe is, a villain, and actually look at her as something that's not a villain. Someone who actually, has powers and is actually in danger. I like seeing that happen. I want to see more episodes like that. I thought that was really cool the way they did that. It was very unexpected with Livewire, and that is the way you really do change things up. I've never been a huge fan of the whole Martian of the Week or, whatever we're dealing with, but I like that this was something different, that Livewire actually was physically being captured, and there was nothing she could do about it. I like that Kara really did see the good in her. That was very well done. But as far as Guardian goes, that's something that while Kara understands why, Wynn and James are doing it because they want to save her and, they want to shield her and try to do whatever they can to protect her, she doesn't really need it. I don't think Kara really needs protection from them. I don't really think she asks protection from them. She doesn't really appreciate it, and she's not going to condone what they did. Not because she doesn't think what they're doing is good, because I think she does think what they're doing is good, but she genuinely cares about their well-being, and I think it just shows how selfless of a person Kara really is. It's not because she doesn't want backup, it's because she's worried they're going to get hurt, because, yeah, they're human, and that's something that, that's an advantage that Mon-El and Kara have, that they're not human. It's less easy for them to end up in physical or, trauma, emotional trauma, definitely, but physical trauma or damage, that's something that don't really happen a lot to them, because they're a lot more, they're a lot more susceptible to that kind of thing where they can't get as hurt, they can't get hurt as much. But, Wynn and James are susceptible to that, where they, in fact, can get hurt, and they, in fact, can have physical damage that can very much hurt them and will very much, cripple them or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons for what can happen there, and I can understand why Kara is not okay with that. And right now, James actually has to take a step back because he's already kind of been apprehended by both Kara and by John. Wynn has been apprehended by John, James has been apprehended by Kara, and I'm interested in seeing where they're going to go with this. If they're going to continue what they're doing, if they're going to try to make this maybe like a side thing. I don't think this is going to be it. I think definitely, knowing how much, James wants to save everyone, I think he is definitely going to try to keep this a thing, but I don't know how long this is really going to go on. If they're going to be able to keep this a thing, if they're going to be able to, basically listen to Kara's advice, or if they're going to try to do something completely different than that, I don't really know. That's something I'm definitely interested in, is what's really going to happen there. Are they going to listen to Kara? Are they not? I don't know. We'll have to see. But I also really love the direction they took John this episode, because again, John saw, he saw M'gann as someone different, not just, he knows the White Martians obviously are bad, but he now had to merge with her and realize that the White Martians are actually coming for him. I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen there with this attack by the White Martians. We see that M'gann was dying and now he saved her, so I'm interested in seeing where that whole storyline is going to go. I really don't know where that's going, and that's something I'm definitely very intrigued by. What I'm not as intrigued by is this whole Mon-El and Supergirl drama. We just don't need it. We really don't need it. I think it's only here to give these two some sort of drama, and there's so much more stuff you could be doing with them. I mean, we could have this great storyline where Mon-El is, like the whole storyline with Mon-El being a little bit more reckless and a little bit more violent and not being, being a little more careless. That was a great storyline with him, not really focusing as much on, being a hero. I thought that whole storyline was really well done. Now that we have him as a sidekick, I really do love their interplay. I think they work very well together. Their banter is very well appreciated. I really think that it's something that we want to see for a while, but I frankly do not want to see these two as anything more than brother and sister, or, just two friends. I don't want to see them as anything more, because it'd just be awkward. To put it simply, imagine if Batman and Robin, I know that obviously they're not gay, but it's like if those two dated. It changes the whole dynamic. It changes everything we look at them as. We no longer see them as partners. We now see them as lovers who, now are in more of a complicated relationship, and they're trying to balance love with, them working together, and it just doesn't work. So I really am hoping they're not trying to set these two up as a couple, because it really is going to hurt the show if they do that. These two work as, you know, friends. They work as brother and sister. They work as two people who have a platonic and fun relationship that maybe has some romantic undertones in there, but they remain strictly as undertones. They're not something that actually is shown. They're not something the show actually ventures into, and I really hope the show is just going to let this go. I really hope they do that, because it's really going to annoy me if the show is going to try to get these two together. I just don't see them as a couple. Maybe you guys do, I just don't see it, and it is definitely going to hurt the show if they decide to go into that direction. Now, the way the episode ended, I'm thinking this is going to be the end of it, but the look on Kara's face kind of makes me think otherwise, and that definitely does concern me, because again, I don't want to see these two together. I just want to see them, you know, fight crime. I want to see them banter. I want to see them, you know, be playful friends with each other. I don't want to see them together. It just isn't something that intrigues me. It's not a storyline the show needs to go into, and it pretty much goes against everything that's been great about this season. The thing that's worked so well about the season is that there hasn't been any love triangles. There hasn't been a ton of, you know, unnecessary love drama. There hasn't been a ton of that. This season has been very character-driven, with characters going through their own personal dilemmas, and the only real romance we've gotten is Maggie and Alex. That's all we need. We don't need any other romance. Okay, John and Magan possibly, but we don't need Mon-El and Supergirl to get together. I hope they're not going in that direction, and I hope this is the end we heard of it. I know I'm going on and on about it, but it really is a big deal. I mean, it's just something that the show really does not need to do, and I don't know why they're really going in that direction. I get that Mon-El would develop feelings for her because, I mean, yeah, Melissa Benoist is a pretty sexy woman. I definitely will say that. She's pretty attractive, and if I was fighting crime, I probably would, you know, fall for her as well. But again, you know, it's all about acting on it. Are they really going to act on it, or are they just going to suggest it and discuss it? There's a big difference between discussing something and suggesting it, and then actually physically doing it. There's a big difference, and I really hope that the show continues to stay, you know, as just friends. If those two can stay as just friends, because that's where they really need to be. Overall, guys, other than that, I really did love this episode. If it hadn't been for the whole Mon-El and Supergirl drama, this would have easily gotten like an A- for me. Because of that, I am going to give Supergirl Season 2, Episode 10, We Can Be Heroes, a 4 to 5 or a B+. Even though I did not particularly love the drama that was going on with Mon-El and Supergirl. I thought everything else was really well done. We had some really great, the real message of this episode was, again, seeing the good in bad, you know, in very bad and dire situations, or seeing the good in things that seem terrible, making something good out of it, and I think it was a very well done message that this episode had. I thought they did that very well throughout the episode. I thought that this definitely was one of the best messages the show has given us, probably one of the best episodes of the season, personally, in my opinion. I really did love this episode overall, between Livewire, what was going on with Magan and John, and of course the big revelation we all were looking forward to with, you know, James and Wynn. Yes, it was a little bit anticlimactic, but I feel like it was meant to be. Eventually, you know, Kara was going to find out, and I like that the show finally got her to find out. There's not a lot of mystery going on there. Where the show goes from here, I'm definitely interested in seeing. I can't wait to see where they're going to go here. I just hope we're not going in the direction of Mon-El and Supergirl that I think we are, because it really is going to change how entertaining and fun those two really are. So overall, guys, I'm going to review this episode of Supergirl. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Loved your thoughts on it. Are you worried about Mon-El and Supergirl as much as I am? I just want to see those two be friends, honestly. That's all I ask. I just want them as friends. We don't need them as anything more. But that's for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next one, which will be for tonight's episode of Shadowhunters, which I am definitely really looking forward to, especially after that ending of last week. And I will definitely see you guys for that. Okay, bye.